Hello and welcome to lesson 6 of the ecology topic, biology. I am Mr. Singleton. I'm one of the associate directors for Outward Academy. This is just a recall from the last lesson that we did, which was the carbon cycle. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to read through. First question is, there are 4 processes involved in the carbon cycle. Can you remember them? Now, if you completed that last lesson, we used people read DC comics to try and remember those. So the P, R, D and C are the first letters of each of those processes. Then out of those processes, question 2, which one is the only one which can remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere? Then question 3, which process is carried out by all the living organisms in the carbon cycle? And then, do you know why changes in carbon dioxide are so important for scientists to study? Why do we even bother teaching you about all this stuff about the carbon cycle? Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes to try and answer those questions on a piece of paper or just in your head, and we'll go through the answers. You've got 1 more minute left. Ten more seconds. Right, okay, let's go through these answers. 4 processes that we've looked at was photosynthesis, respiration, combustion and decomposition. And the only one of those processes that can remove carbon dioxide, this is why plants are so important, is photosynthesis. That's the only way we can reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. The process which all living things carry out, so that's the bacteria that we talked about last lesson, the plants and the cow it was on the picture, but any other organism, was respiration. And the reason why it's so important that you lot are learning about this is because carbon dioxide is something that contributes to global warming. And we're going to look at that in this lesson. Okay, so if you're using a piece of paper, then put down the title, Land Use, Deforestation and Global Warming. We're going to try and get through all 3 of these in this lesson. Okay, so the challenges and aspire for this lesson. So first challenge is to identify the issues caused by an increase in human population. So as we get more and more humans, about 7 billion at this point in time, as we get more humans on the earth, how does that affect the environment? Then we're going to describe the issues of deforestation and then explain how global warming occurs for our aspire. So we'll look at deforestation first. It's quite an easy one. It kind of says what it is already. But just have a look at these 2 pictures here. So this is how many forests, or the coverage of the forests, 8,000 years BC. Now look at America, look at England in particular, absolutely covered in forests. all of Europe there covered in forests and how much that's now depleted. Now, forests now cover about 10% of the earth, but they're home to so many different species of animals, about 50%, and higher than that, the 70% in plants. But as we have more and more humans, more and more forests are going to be destroyed to make rooms for houses and factories and farmlands. And that's what deforestation is, cutting down those trees so we can make room for more houses or more farms, and then also using all of that wood that we get from the plants to make buildings, to make furniture and those types of things. So why do it? Well, I've kind of touched on this a little bit. Why are we cutting down all these massive areas of forest? We know they're really important. What's the point? Well, we do need a lot of land. The more people we have, the more food we need to make, and therefore then we need more land for farming and agriculture, making biofuels or rice fields, mining, and building new homes. But we also use the wood for fuel, for burning, and also for timber for construction. I mean, I'm sat in my lounge at this point in time. My TV stand's made of wood, my chairs are made of wood, I've got a coffee table, lots of things are made of wood. Now, there are a lot of obviously impacts of this in terms of on the atmosphere. Obviously now you've not got those plants there, and we're not just talking about the trees at this point in time, but we're talking about all the other plants that are below the trees. So there's going to be more and more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because there's less photosynthesis. And obviously when we are burning these, when we're carrying out that combustion, which we talked about in the carbon cycle, we're also releasing more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And because lots of things are dying there, because of being cut down or being stood on or everything like that, there's more decomposers that are respiring and then releasing more of that carbon dioxide. So there's 3 reasons there why carbon dioxide will increase. Less photosynthesis, the burning of the trees, and then decomposers will increase. Also, we've got this other gas here called methane now. If you think back to when you were in school, them gas taps, they release methane. And methane isn't a great gas either for us. So methane will increase when we're planting rice into those areas that we've cut down the trees from, and also when we've got more cattle. So on the ecosystem, so this isn't on the atmosphere, but also the negative effects on the ecosystem. So we get loss of habitats, obviously lots of birds use their nests, but also there's elephants and gorillas and orangutans and things like that that live in these forests that are being cut down. We get a less biodiversity. I know you've done that in a previous lesson, but it's like there are less different types of living things. And also you end up losing organisms that might become useful in the future. So new medicines that might come from the rainforest, and might be the cure for cancer somewhere in a plant in the rainforest. We might just get rid of that without even realizing it. And also now you haven't got all of these roots holding all the soil together, so you get more soil erosion, which can cause more flooding and landslides. So they're all the negative effects on an ecosystem. So there's 3 questions for you to complete on your Google form. If you're really struggling with them, use the pictures to help you out. But I've just gone through them now. I'll give you 4 minutes to try and complete them questions on your Google form. If you're not using the Google form, that's fine. Why not just write it down on a piece of paper, and then you can bring that into school when you're back in. I'll give you 4 minutes. We've got 2 minutes left. We've got 1 minute left. Okay, well done. So hopefully now you can describe some of the issues about deforestation. What are the negative effects of that deforestation? So we're going to have a look at some of these others. Okay. So I reckon you've probably heard about this on the news, and David Attenborough talks about this a lot. But one of the massive threats of air pollution is global warming. Okay, global warming is the buildup of these greenhouse gases. Now, everyone knows usually about one or two of these, but actually there's four that you need to know, 4 or 5 in fact. So a greenhouse gas is any gas at all that can absorb infrared light. And these include carbon dioxide, which you've probably heard of, methane, which I spoke to you about before. So the release of methane will heat up the earth, water vapor, and nitrous oxide. Okay, all those 4 will start to increase the Earth's temperature if they're in. So what I'm going to do is just going to talk to you through global warming. Okay, so this is my just little diagram to show you. Now, this is obviously not to scale, not the right colours, but you've got the sun there in the top corner, and the big blue circle there is to show the planet Earth. Now, around the planet Earth, that little thin blue line around it is the atmosphere, which is a brilliant set of gases which really help us. I'll show you why. Okay, so the sun releases this radiation, which travels through space and hits the Earth. And when it hits the Earth, it heats up the surface of the Earth, which is perfect for us. Now, what generally happens is lots of that radiation is reflected back out into space. Because we have this atmosphere, some of that radiation will reflect back into the Earth, and that actually is a greenhouse effect. That's a bit of a greenhouse effect. We want that greenhouse effect. It heats us up that a little bit warmer, allows life to happen. So we actually want that. But when we start to carry out combustion, so if I just get a picture of my car up there, and that factories behind it, when we start to burn those fossil fuels, we release more carbon dioxide. The car will release some nitrous oxide because it reacts with the nitrogen in the atmosphere. It heats up and reacts with the oxygen and releases nitrous oxide. And all these gases, this carbon dioxide and this nitrous oxide, will be released into the atmosphere. Now, we talked a little bit about deforestation just previous to this, and we talked about methane, okay? The more cows there are, the more these cows will pass wind. And when they pass wind, just like you and I, we release methane. Okay, so the more cows we've got, the more intensively farming of cows we've got, the more methane we release. So what that does to the atmosphere is it actually makes that atmosphere a lot thicker. Now, a lot of the time we use this term a blanket. So it makes this blanket around the Earth, which therefore then stops a lot of that radiation from going out into space, and more of that radiation reflects back onto the surface of the Earth. And when that happens, the Earth's temperature, surface temperature, increases. Okay, so just before you start answering those questions on Google Forms, just have a think about the effects of global warming. You know, that Earth heating up at 1 or 2 degrees in England would be bliss for us, a nice long hot summer. But think just about outside your country, think about the North Pole, the South Pole, and what's going to happen if those temperatures get warmer and how that will affect those areas, and then how that will obviously affect us. If you're around, you know, South Yorkshire and Yorkshire in particular, North Yorkshire, you've seen some of the effects of global warming already. So I'll give you 5 minutes, answer questions 4, 5 and 6 on your Google form. Or if you want to, make a revision card about how global warming occurs. You can go back to the previous slide, pause the video and make some notes. Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. Off you go. Okay, you've got 1 more minute left. Okay, right, well done. So now we've looked at the issues of deforestation, which is one of the challenges, and we've also looked at the Aspire, which is explain how global warming occurs. Now there's just one more issue that's on the AQA specification, which is about how humans can change the environment. So, peat bogs are these big areas of land which are just made up from decaying plants, and they partly decay, and then another layer of plants decays on top, and another layer decays on top. So therefore, there's quite a lot of this carbon in there. So sometimes they're called carbon sinks. Now they're really good for wildlife because it allows these animals to nest and nest safely. Okay, particularly things like birds, they can go out into that area and nest, and no larger animals will come into that peat bog land because they'll start to sink and they'll get stuck there. So it allows these animals to nest and be protected from larger prey. Now the issue for this is a lot of the peat bogs are used for compost, so it gets dug up, all that carbon then reacts with the oxygen and releases this carbon dioxide, and then it's taken away and used as compost because it's full of this all the nutrients. The other thing sometimes that happens with peat bogs as well, or the peat from the peat bogs, is that it can be burnt, and obviously it's got lots of carbon in, so therefore then it releases carbon dioxide. There's not a massive amount on this on the AQA specification, but it is good to know. They often ask it as a quick question. Right, so that's it. We have explained how global warming occurs. We've identified the three issues that's caused by increasing human population and described the issues of deforestation. So you're pleased with the last bit of this lesson. I want you to complete the next couple of questions on the Google form. That's just about peat bogs. And I still really push this. I'd still suggest that you make 3 quick revision cards or 3 sets of notes about deforestation, global warming and peat bogs. Now I would have a revision card for each one. So on deforestation, to say what it is, why it happens, so why do humans want to carry it out, and what effect it has on the environment. For global warming, I do the same thing. What is global warming, how it occurs, and what effect it has on the environment. And the same thing for peat bogs. I do a separate revision card on peat bogs, what they are, why it happens, and what effect it has on the environment. Check your answers on the Google form. It should self-mark for you. If you've got any queries, obviously go and check it with your teacher. Just message them in Google Classrooms.